Greetings YouTube, it's me once again, Charles King. Now, sorry you aren't able to see me right now, but unfortunately my webcam is a little bit on fritz right now, but I'm going to get that sorted out soon. But, I digress. You see, I was supposed to upload part 2 of my Question to the World video some time ago, but for unforeseen circumstances, my internet was put on hold for a while. But now it's back, and I'm ready to upload part 2 of it. Now, again, like I mentioned before in my previous video, I do not advocate violence, and I appreciate anyone who's willing to give me a negative opinion on something within reason. But at the same time, know this. We cannot say that we represent all people just from making ourselves appear PC. Because PC doesn't always mean what it is. Some people say it stands for politically correct, but if you ask me, I don't think that's really the definition of it anymore. Because basically they're just using it as a means to make it seem like they're really trying to make it look like they're really appreciating your help, but so far all PC culture has done is just destroy what was once considered funny and entertaining. I'm okay with people not crossing certain boundaries so long as they keep it in perspective. But unfortunately, things have changed. It's not what it once was. So with that, here's what I'm going to be discussing in part 2 of Question to the World. I want people to tell me if they know who this person is. If you know who it is, the person's name is Buck Angel. Now, I don't really know what this person's name was before they transitioned, but Buck Angel has always been known for being a trans man, a F to M, a female to male transsexual. And the fact is, for the longest time now, I was completely unaware of what was the backstory of this person right here. And, well, most people are saying that it's just a porn star and everything like that. I think there's actually a bit more to the story than just that. You see, the reason why I don't really have a problem with people like Buck Angel is because Buck Angel accepts one major factor in life. The exterior of something is not what it represents on the interior. For the longest time now, people have stated before that in order for someone to fully say that they are something, it has to match their inside and their outside, but that's not always the case anymore these days. Now, Punk Angel has appeared in what they would call homosexual pornography, but at the same time, remember it stated before that Buck Angel is biologically female but still presents as male because they do not have male genitalia down there. So Buck Angel has always been in that type of circumstance. Now, I have no problem with this person choosing how to live their life however they want, living in peace, harmony with all of those around them. But unfortunately, it doesn't just end there. While this person transitioned for their own personal benefit, there are those out there who are transitioning just for publicity, reality's sake, and just to make themselves feel better or make it seem like they're actually trying to put out a message to the world, but that's not always the case. Now then, I'm about to show two images on this screen. And when you see them, I want you to really picture something for 1 second there. Now, I bet most of you guys can obviously guess who this is. This is the Juggernaut, aka the Unstoppable Juggernaut. Now, powers and stats. Unbelievable strength, pretty much unstoppable momentum, and durability that even the Hulk would have difficulty breaking down. And now, here's the other, Mystique. Powers and abilities, shape-shifting, some enhanced strength, master at espionage and disguise. Now, I bet you're wondering, why am I showing these two images? Well, basically, I want you to think about the scenario. In terms of combat, both of them have stats that would definitely outweigh the other. But at the same time, we know for a fact that there are limits in their powers. And for the longest time now, people have been able to accept it as such. every living being is going to have its limits. And the fact is, people keep on saying that this can compare to that, and that can compare that to this. But that's not the case in this scenario. Everybody recognize this? It's an image from the South Park episode known as the Bored Girls. Now, I really love the take that they did on this episode because it really shows what's going on these days now. Because, like I just matched up before, you've got the hulking, almost unstoppable Juggernaut against Mystique. Now, here's the thing. Like I said, I already stated what their stats are. But you'd have to picture a proper scenario where Mystique could beat the Juggernaut and the Juggernaut could beat Mystique. Now, if it was just a full-on brawling cage match, there's a strong possibility that the Juggernaut may end up crushing Mystique because, like I mentioned, nearly unstoppable momentum, unbelievable strength and durability. And while Mystique has her stealth skills and everything like that, in a straight up combat mode, she's not exactly going to really stand a chance against this guy. The best tactic she would have would be like to lure him into a trap or possibly use some type of weapon or using his own strength against him in a certain scenario. But again, the circumstances has to be just right in order for it to work. Or otherwise, one could fall into a trap or one could just be completely obliterated in the process. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because every time I keep on hearing these stories about transsexuals or transvestites or non-binary people competing in sports these days, it's not exactly going to always really be a fair factor. People like even Blair White, for example, have given clear examples why that's not always going to really be a good idea. Just like with the Juggernaut Mystique, it's almost the same thing with men and women in real life. Men are naturally born with a bit more testosterone than women, which means we can grow stronger, bigger, and even faster, depending on the circumstances, against biological women. So that means that there's almost going to be forever a divide when it comes to athletic ability when it comes to men and women. Now, I'm not exactly an athlete, and there are tons of women that could beat the crap out of me, but at the same time, there are other men out there who are far more in shape than me that could dominate against women. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because it seems to be having a double impact on people. Now, I saw a video once where women were saying the only time men are supposed to really defend themselves against women is if their lives are in genuine danger, where they can be killed. Where it says when it comes to physical strength, it's not even. And yet, these are the type of people pushing the agenda saying that there is no difference between men and women. So, how can one minute you say there is no difference between men and women when it comes to strength, and yet you say they're pretty much on an equal playing field when it comes to athletics? It doesn't make sense.
When it comes to physical strength, they're not equal. When it comes to physical strength, they're not equal.
I apologize for the choppiness of that video, but I think you get the overall message right there. That lady was clearly stating when it was comparing to a case when a man who I believe was a security guard at a place where a woman who was kicked out from before was attempting to assault the man, he pretty much knocked her out in one single punch. Now the woman was a little over 4 feet tall, and this guy's over at least 6 feet tall. Now I'm just shy of 6 feet, but even I wouldn't want to mess with this guy because you know what? He can mess me up too. So I'm not just gonna walk up to him right there and try to aggravate him. Now, the reason why I bring that up is this. In matches where I've seen women fight against each other, there are certain injuries and damages that will never really be pushed to the limit of when you see two men in there because I remember a story about an MMA fighter who was against a transsexual woman, and this biological woman fought against this person and ended up with a fractured skull. Now, I've heard of some injuries in MMA fighting, but never really always to that extent when it comes to the women's division because in fact, I've seen some bruises and marks, but never to that status right there. And from what I've heard, this person barely even started under their transitioning because these days it's like you don't even need to transition anymore because you just need to say what you are and it instantly becomes that. In fact, I believe they were trying to work that way with birth certificates and everything like that, saying that you could have been born male or female at one point in your life, but then boom, can take this birth certificate, change it to whatever you want right there, and you'll be treated as thus and so forth without doing anything to actually change your exterior body. So that means you, like I mentioned before, you can be as hulking as the Juggernaut, but still be compared to somebody as petite as Mystique. So really think about that there for a second. They're saying that you can just write whatever you want and people will be treated you as such. Does that really make any sense here? Now, I'm not saying this applies to all, but a lot of this PC stuff seems to be full of massive hypocrisy. There are things that I've seen these people doing these days that when heterosexual people attempt to do certain things, they're going to get blasted with being homophobic, transphobic, and whatever they can come up with in their minds. But apparently it's okay so long as it deals with the LGBT stuff. For example, I know there's a movie called Cuties going around. Now, do not take this the wrong way. There are many, many things I saw in that movie, and yes, I did see the movie. I'm not going based on what people tell me about it because that's where things always fall through. Do not let people decide for you. You must decide for yourself. If you choose not to watch it, be my guest. But make that choice not based on what people say, but based on your own personal choices. Do not let people influence your choice. Let that be your own choice. Now, there are things that I saw in that movie that appeared quite disturbing and inappropriate. But at the same time, there are other people who are also saying it was only a matter of time before we saw something like this. And I don't blame them. There are things that I've noticed in the world nowadays that at one point or another would get people arrested or detained. But for some strange reason, it's like so long as it is in this category, it is invincible and unable to be made fun of. And they say if you make fun of this, that means you hate these people, you want violence against these people, and whatever they can come up with. But that's not how it is. Because there's something called Drag Queen Story Hour. Now, normally, drag queens were something to deal with comedy and also in the entertainment business. But at the same time, it was predominantly for young adults and older generations as well too. It's not for the age demographic that deals with preteens or even teens themselves because it can be quite sexual and there are shows and other things I've seen so far. It seems to be promoting children to explore this type of environment, even though you would not normally let them come into it. Because there was a show I saw, I can't remember his name was Desmond is Amazing, I believe, where I saw a prepubescent boy in a pretty sexualized clothing dancing in a club full of gay men. And they're saying, oh, this is just encouragement, this is just them building him up. No, you do not do that to a child, okay? There is in no way that that is appropriate. You want this child to be safe. You want this child to grow up and make their own decisions and not be influenced. I mean, how many of us grew up influenced by some things we saw? Like some of us want to be like the Power Rangers or whatever we saw on TV like that. Because hey, I'm not above that myself. I had Power Ranger toys, and sometimes I like to pretend I'm a Power Ranger and something like that. And many, 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 many of us also probably do the same thing too. But the point is this: when we're young and impressionable, we will imitate what we see. And And we're gonna sometimes think that, hey, maybe I want to do that. And you know what? It's led to a lot of people doing stupid things over the years. I mean, there are memes and videos about people doing challenges over the internet where there was the ice bucket challenge, the fire challenge, and all that. And how many injuries did that lead to and certain deaths? Yeah, quite a bit of them. And some of these injuries and deaths weren't even by adults. They were actually by children. The people remember the cinnamon challenge? Yeah, not that long ago when people were attempting this stuff and were killing themselves over it. So you really think that exposing children to this type of stuff at such a young age is a wise decision? In fact, one of the most bizarre cases I've ever seen in this situation wasn't even about where a man identified as a woman. No, no, no. This is a story about a man who was 52 years old at the time, who had several children and a wife, who began to cross dress as a 6-year-old girl, where he keeps on claiming that he is a 6-year-old girl in a 52-year-old man's body. Yeah, that's right, folks. This is not a man identifying as a woman, but as a 6-year-old girl. Yeah. Let that colorful image sink in for a second right there. He was doing this not just as like maybe he had a fetish or something, but he genuinely wanted people to treat him as such. To the point where his wife couldn't take it anymore and asked him to leave because how can a man really call himself a father knowing he's doing this for like a lifestyle in front of his children? Because that's just not something you normally see. Maybe people would do things like kinkiness in the bedroom, and I'm not going to tell what a person can do in the bedroom, but this is a lifestyle this guy was trying to put out there. And you know what? I find it as completely lazy and pathetic. I mean, seriously, the guy, I really believe this guy was just trying to get out of his responsibilities as a father. He thought if he acted bizarre enough, eventually they're just gonna have enough of him and want him out because hey, you're probably gonna want child support from a guy who's doing this kind of stuff. And then eventually he was picked up by a family. And you know what? I really believe that this family, just like many other families out there, are just trying to get, I don't know, sympathy points for taking in somebody like this, for thinking that they were abandoned by their family. When you think about it, he pretty much abandoned them because he wanted to let go of his responsibilities as an adult and keep up with his bizarre lifestyle. And remember, like I said, this guy at the time was 52 years old. That is older than even my own mother right now. Now, it doesn't even end right there. He's living with a family who has children and also grandchildren. And the fact is, he's also been heard talking to older men who I believe are bikers and possibly having encounters with them. I can't prove that for sure, but that's what I've been hearing. So let me get this straight. This family with small children is having a complete stranger come into their home, live out this bizarre fantasy, and is having possible sexual encounters with other men, probably even under their own roof. And no one thinks that this is a warning sign right here? Seriously, where's Chris Hansen when you need him? This is just, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the world anymore. This is just bizarre, disturbing, and completely inappropriate. Now, I'm going to end out this video on this note right here. I may come back someday to add some more on top of it, but this is where I'm going to wrap it up right now. But the point is, listen up. You want the world to start accepting these things? Keep it within order. Don't go out there and try and make it seem like they're all victims. Because you know what? Some of them are trying to victimize people. And believe me, there are many people in the trans community that are saying, no, no, this is enough. There are people like Blair White, many of her supporters, and I personally am a supporter myself. I love her show, and she's very funny. They're saying this kind of stuff, keep it away from children. Far away. Okay? And on that note, I wish you all a pleasant good evening and a wonderful life.